Hey team, welcome back to Amateur Athletics. It's only our second video, but you're probably wondering where my beard went. Well, the ski season's over, so I shaved down, but you might see some changes in that way. But we're still talking about skiing, and actually there was a big snowfall today. Here we're at, and hopefully we'll get a little bit of spring skiing in yet to go, but the racing season's over, and the training's all behind us now. But just to continue on our video series here about Nordic skiing, today we're going to talk about racing. And racing is a really important part of the training cycle when it comes to skiing, but also when it comes to running and different endurance events, different endurance sports. But accumulating an event is important when we're talking about any athletic endeavor. So you could take the word race out of this and you could put in its place game or show or what have you, depending on your given event. But specifically I'll be talking about ski racing today, right? And so ski racing fits into the season a little bit differently than like a running race. There's plenty of similarities, but I'll first kind of list a couple of the differences. When it comes to ski racing, the body can actually handle quite a bit of ski racing due to the kind of minimized effects of repetitive motion and pounding and wear and tear on your body because of the low impact nature of Nordic skiing. So what happens, and also we have a pretty short winter season when it actually comes to having good snow and good ski trails and people maintaining them. So Nordic skiing kind of comes down to a couple months of training and then a quick month of just hammering a bunch of races, right? And that's different from a road season, a road running season, or a trail running season where you're maybe spacing your races out a little bit more for some extra recovery, but you also just have longer periods of time to get running races in on the calendar. And so there's two kinds of races that I would consider chatting about today. There's sort of a mid-season race, and then there's the post-season race, the end of the season, the culminating event, right? And so you might have you might have zero to 3, 4 mid-season races, and those are going to be at various places, various distances, various speeds, and we're going to take them, at a varying level of seriousness. We want to come at them all with a very serious mindset, but we're always using those mid-season races to build towards our postseason race, our end of the season race, what our goal race is, right? And so for me personally, in the ski calendar, the goal race is always the American Birkelbeiner out in Wisconsin, right? That starts up in Cable, Wisconsin, skis down, races down to Hayward, Wisconsin. And so leading up to that, I'll have a bunch of mid-season races. And the mid-season races might change every year, and it might be, how do I select those races? How would you go about that? Well, races you've heard your friends and family talk about, things you've heard or seen that look kind of cool. Really looking for the ones where the community is the most engaged and the people who are putting up the race are really into it. So, but let's dive into sort of what is important when it comes to the before, during, and after one of these races. So let's dive into sort of the race plan of a postseason race, right? That goal race, the race you've had on your calendar for a long time, and what it takes to get ready, execute, and complete, and then move on after one of those races. Racing's kind of tricky in the adult world because when you no longer have that coach built in, or that that high school coach, that college coach, that person selecting races for you and paying registration fees and finding them and communicating and writing an itinerary, when that's all gone, you have to do that all yourself or with a new modified support crew. So that was one of the hardest things for myself was picking the races I wanted to do, and not just writing the training plans, but where do I register? How early do I have to register? And what is it going to look like getting myself to the race and doing the race? Oftentimes with the bigger races, you're going to have to register yourself a whole year ahead of time, and they might cost anywhere from $100 to $300 depending on the type of event you're going to do. I mean, if you're targeting something bigger like an Ironman, that's a real production, and those are going to cost like near $1,000, right? But let's take the Berkey for instance. I think the registration was around $200 last year. Because like I said, there's just a lot of moving parts to these events, and they have to operate them somehow. And so registration's usually 8 months ahead of time, that sort of thing. And these races fill up, the more popular ones, so you really have to be on top of those things. So then before the race, what are the considerations we have to worry about? We have to figure out, how am I going to get to the race? All right, where am I sleeping the night before? Is this race far enough from my house where I don't want to drive there the morning of? Is this race close enough where I can drive there the morning of? What am I eating in that morning? Is it something I'm used to eating? It shouldn't be something brand new. Am I getting coffee in at the normal time that I'm used to? Am I drinking lots of water or not too much water the morning of? Did I get good sleep the night before? Those sorts of things. And then you got to figure out, what's the packet pickup situation? Do I need to get my race bib multiple days early? Are they mailing it to me? Or do I pick it up at the start line? And we don't want to let that be a point of stress. So you have to know that ahead of time. You have to figure that out. Check those emails that the race is sending out after you registered. All the information should be there. And am I bringing some warm-up gear? And where am I going to stash that warm-up gear during the race? Do I have a friend or family member coming that could maybe hold on to that gear? Do they have a bag drop service that'll bring all my gear to the finish line? These are questions, once again, that will be answered on some of those emails, hopefully, when you're receiving them from the race organizers. Typically, a smaller race isn't going to have a bag drop service or anything like that. So making sure to plan these things out and sort of recruiting yourself a little race crew. Whether it, like I keep saying family. Whether it's your mom lives in the area, or your significant other, or a good buddy who you've trained with but they're not doing the race. Those sorts of people are going to be really handy in a race situation as an adult. And so then the last considerations before the race then are just getting to the start line early enough where you have time to find a bathroom. The lines are going to be pretty long, and find time to do a little bit of a warm up. All right. But not being too worried about the warm up. Especially in these big events. Like a big major marathon or an Ironman. Those sorts of things. There's going to be so many people there that you might not get the warm-up in that you wanted to. If you're used to a high school or college racing situation, very structured, they had just the right amount of teams there, just the right amount of participants. They weren't really worried about turning a profit. But these adult races are, they have a bottom line. They have to make money, and they have to keep, paying their people and being able to put on the race next year, right? So there's gonna be a lot of people. Oftentimes, your warm-up might not go perfectly. If it's a ski race, you're definitely not gonna have the perfect trail conditions or extra space to be skiing around. You're not gonna want to ski on all of your nice wax too much. And so oftentimes you might be starting these races a little colder than you'd prefer. And so knowing that going in is going to really help the mentality and understanding it might not be a perfect situation leading up. And on that topic, you'll want to get to the start line fairly early in a ski race. Now in a running race, you show up to the corral, you can kind of weave your way towards the front or as far forward as you think your ability level dictates. And there's usually, people don't have too much of an issue if you walk in front of them or if you let other people kind of weave in ahead or behind you, kind of based on your perceived ability level and how you're going to fare in that race pace-wise. Now Nordic ski race is totally different. You have to get there. People will put their skis down at the start line to kind of reserve their spot. People might stand there early. What I have found, I don't really like leaving my skis at the start line. So what I do, I mean, especially if you don't leave your poles next to them on the ground, I've seen people step and break poles because they're laying on the ground right before the race, and then you're just kind of out of luck. So considering that ahead of time, getting to the start line early, and you might have to be down into your race suit, and it's going to be a little cold, but it's going to be worth having a good spot, because starting any ski race behind people is a real disadvantage, especially if you're starting, further behind people who are below your below your ability level. And having people ahead of you that are faster, totally fine, right? Because it's just, we want, when the gun goes off, that everyone has enough space to ski at their pace. And if you're starting too far back in the pack, it's going to take a long time to claw through that pack. The only other thing before a race you have to consider, and this is maybe backing up a little bit way before a race, is considering waxing for for your skis, and we'll talk about waxing more in depth in another video. But just quick for now, waxing is dependent on the conditions. How warm is it? How cold is it? How wet is it? How dry is it? Is this new snow? Is this old snow? And prepping those skis with wax well before the race day and keeping an eye on the weather. Wax is going to play a big pivotal role in your performance on race day. So then during the race, let's talk about during the race. The gun goes off. You should have a plan for the start. Are you going to go out hard? Are you going to go out conservative? Are you going to, do you know the course? Do you not know the course? Do you have key parts of the race that you're going to try to execute on? How are you going to get in your nutrition during the race? Ski races are typically longer. You might be racing for 1 to 3 hours, maybe 4 or 5 hours even. And so, how am I getting my fluids? Am I getting them at aid stations? Are there going to be a lot of aid stations? Or am I bringing a pack with a water bottle on it? Am I eating any food during this? Is it solid? Is it liquid? How am I getting calories in? Do I have people on the sidelines that can hand me bottles that I know? And otherwise you might think about strategy. Am I going to draft off people? Am I going to try to pass people on the uphills, the downhills, those sorts of things? Some really, quick hits, some key things to be focusing on in races. Is picking your moments to burn those matches, picking your moments to go really hard and pass people, whether that's on, like I said, a key uphill or things like that. Or maybe you're going to say like, all right, every time I hit a big flat open section, I'm really going to rip it and put some time into these people. And then doing the little things like tucking down a hill, right? Bending low, keeping arrow, getting behind people as much as you can, not letting people gap you, and for you to lose those slipstreams. All right. And then being race aware, knowing, all right, approximately what position am I in this race? How am I feeling? Checking in with yourself every once in a while. Whether that's every 10K or every 5K or every 5 minutes or every half hour, depending on what you feel comfortable with. Checking in with yourself, being honest with yourself. Do I feel good right now? Do I feel bad? And then if it is bad or if it is good, then what's the plan going forward, right? It's not, oh, I feel bad, the race is over. It's, all right, I'm getting a little tired. Maybe I need some fluids. Maybe I need some food. Maybe I need to, take this next 5K just a little easier so I can attack the last part of the race or something like that. So then lastly, finishing the race. After the race, you're going to want to quickly find your gear, get some warm clothes on. If you brought dry layers, and it was a really long race, switching out those base layers that are a little sweaty and a little damp. And then, finding your friends, family, finding the people you raced with, perhaps congratulating other people, getting some food in immediately. Oftentimes these races have food, but you should pack food, extra water in your bag if they had a gear drop or if someone brought some for you. And then, talking about it. You need to be reflective of your races so that you can move forward and you can grow from your races. You have to know, what did I do well? What did I do not so well? What can I do better next time? What do I want to continue to do next time? What should I repeat in this process? What should I try not to do anymore? And so an example might be you're talking with someone at the finish line, your significant other, and you say, yeah, I think I really did well on the uphills during that race. I really got after them. But on the downhills, I was so tired that I wasn't tucking very much. And I think I was losing a lot of time on those downhills where I could have been getting some free energy, right? And so next time I want to do X, Y, or Z, but I'm going to continue to do this or that. So, being reflective after those races in the moment is important. And then being reflective maybe a couple days later, because oftentimes our snap judgments are going to be a lot different than how we end up feeling with some time. I like to reflect, in the written form, whether it be like a typed out post on Strava or I like to type out a little post on Strava right after the race, so I kind of know my initial feedback and thoughts, and then I like to write out handwrite out a more well thought out reflection a couple days later when I really can take in what happened, especially for that postseason race, that big end of season race. And then, maybe at the end of the whole season, I'll write a reflection on how every race went and how my training went and those sorts of things. So that's a little snapshot at, racing, ski racing, and, what kind of to do before, during, after, what to do, how to select your race, how to get registered, how to, show up and be the best you can on the given day. But there's a lot of moving parts, and I think a lot of times racing is just finding a good routine for you, knowing what to pack in the bag because you've done it before, knowing how, what your favorite, methods are of eating, and what do you want to read a book in the morning? Do you want to listen to some music on the way? Do you prefer silence? Do you want to be talking to people? All these sorts of things are going to be important when it comes to racing. So I hope all this helps, kind of help you plan for your next race. So if your next goal race is in the next 6 to 8 months, or start looking for those registration times, see when it's coming out. And if your race is closer yet, best of luck, and hope you can use some of these quick tips to best succeed in your future racing endeavors.